Retired and Senior Volunteer Program at 15945 Canal Road, Clinton Township, Michigan, 48038. We're here today with our veteran William Joseph Shier, who is, I believe, 79 years old at this point. My name is Jim Pachuki. I'm the interviewer today. Our videographer today is Marie Abdallah. And also in attendance is George Koff, who is going to be involved in doing these interviews in the future. May I refer to you as Bill?
Right.
Okay, Bill. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the early life of Bill Shier, where you were born, in school, and so forth?
All right, I'll rattle it off. I was born the 20th of February in 26, and my dad was in Detroit, Michigan.
Okay.
And my early life was scattered, jumping around because prior to the Depression era, so we did a lot of moving. And I can name the streets and everything in Detroit.
We're primarily in East Side or West Side?
East Sider, right,
Okay.
with the Van Dyke and Harper area.
Okay.
I was born on Marcus off of Van Dyke, and I lived in that area most of the time. We did have a short stint in Flint, Michigan, where my dad tried to improve his earnings with the Briggs Corporation. He had changed to Chrysler's later on, the Briggs manufacturing. And my third brother was born there when we were up there. And then we came back to Detroit in 30 with the Depression because he lost all his houses. He made a lot of money and then he lost it all in the Depression. So we lived in a bunch of flats and everything around the east side again. And the schools I attended, and I started my first school when we moved back to Detroit in 30. I started school when I was 4.5 years old.
Oh.
That was a little school on the east side. You want to know something? There's the first one.
Well, why don't you...
Okay, it was, I believe it was Cooper.
Okay.
And in the same couple miles area, we just kept moving. And nothing was accomplished that was great as far as my life is concerned. It was in general. And I was able to, I was able to understand it, excel as far as classes was concerned. Although I didn't push myself, I could have done better. I found out in later years. And went all the way up to, started high school finally on the east side of St. Catherine's High School. And the war came on, so I quit after 2 years and went looking for a job. And they were all rubber jobs because you needed an education. Even then I found out. So until I was drafted in 1944, it was just skip from one menial job to another, surviving actually. And like I said, counts May 1st, I got my notice 1944. I turned 18 then that year.
Okay.
And got my call to report to Fort Sheridan, Illinois on the 11th of May.
That's not where you...
That's where I went to be inducted.
You had to get there by yourself at Fort Sheridan?
No.
Okay.
My dad took off from work and walked me down to Michigan Central Depot.
Okay.
That's my first train ride. And that took you right into the Union Station in Chicago.
Okay.
Where you jumped onto the interurban. And the interurban took you right up to the Camp Custer.
Okay.
The one line, the one metro line. And the cadre met you right at the train station and marched you into camp and marched you to a barracks. And got you settled there until they started doing their thing to get you inducted.
Okay.
We were supposed to be inducted on the 11th that day that we arrived there. But it turns out we got there so late that they put it off till the next morning, the 12th of May. And took us into a big, nice hall there. And give you shots and checkups and what have you. And then he said, raise your right hand, and you, all of a sudden your body and soul belong to Uncle Sam.
Yeah.
And from that was the 12th of May. And 4 days later, they said, pack up, you're going ahead for your first training camp, which turned out to be Camp Hood, Texas. We got there on the 18th of May, and just like today, just this week here, 100 and some degrees every damn day. It was really something. You struggled to work out, do your calisthenics. And one of the odd things about that training at that time, in 44, which was 3 years after we were started, a lot of the men that were with me training were from areas of the country that had saturated the youth of their localities. And I had guys in there. I had one guy with one eye. I had guys with club foot. I had old men in there old men, 37 years old with family of kids at home. And I had a lot of the South, the Spanish, probably Mexicans or whatever, came across to live in the United States. So we had a lot of people, guys from Arkansas that couldn't even read or write. But they took them in and they all survived. But that was the big point of the training.
I noticed you call it Camp Hood.
But that's right. Today is Fort Hood.
Fort Hood, yeah, that's
it's a regular, right. They did that after the war.
Okay.
Yeah, it was Camp Hood then.
Okay.
Now it's a regular military base.
Right.
That was correct.
Okay.
It was a large base because it was anti-tank training.
Oh.
So we took our training as a rifleman for 4 weeks.
Okay.
And then after that, we went over to anti-tank training on 57 caliber, 37 caliber anti-tank guns. And that you did that for a month. And on the other side of the camp was a tank group. And you went over there and fought with them. That was your fighting ground. You were the guns shooting them with their tanks and they were shooting back. And
how many men on a crew of 57 millimeter?
you want to know something? I think it was only 3.
All 3?
Yeah, it was gunner, the sighter, and then one passing the ammunition.
Okay.
And so we went through that. And one of the bad things about all of this is I was very introverted. I couldn't even kill bugs. I couldn't kill anything or anything like that. And here I am picking up rifles and shooting. It was really against my inner nature. And I didn't like it. And I was always hoping that something would happen. And to be blessed, it happened. After we finished with our training at Camp Hood, and I took our 2-week R&R after training, I reported to Camp Van Dorn, Mississippi in September of 1944, and I was told I was going to be a medic. I didn't have to carry a gun anymore, and I really smiled. It made me happy. So then I started medical training there, which only lasted for 6 weeks because then we got our orders to ship out. Division packed up in November, shipped out to Camp Shanks, New York, just above New York City.
Only 6 weeks of training as a medic. Wow.
And well, the division was getting ready to go. I was just a replacement. They've been training a long time.
Was it as hot in Mississippi as it was in Texas?
No, it was not.
Okay.
Right, this was later, this was September and October. We did have a lot of rain though. And from Camp Shanks we spent, let's see, we got up there in early November and we shipped out on Thanksgiving Day, the Republican Thanksgiving Day, the 23rd of November. We boarded the ships to go overseas, and I spent the Democratic Thanksgiving on high seas halfway to Europe. One of the nice things was it was a former cruise liner. It was a Caribbean cruise liner that I got to go across on, the Thomas H. Berry. It was really nice.
Where was Camp Shanks?
It was 30 miles north of New York City, right along the Hudson River. And we could get right on the rail line. It came right up there, you follow it right into Penn Station, and come into New York City for a couple of days of fun and that, when you get a time off. And we spent 16 days on the high seas after, and entered through the Mediterranean. We went into the Mediterranean, past Algiers and what have you. And when we got to Corsica, we made a left-hand turn and right up to Marseille, France, where we landed. And we got there on Pearl Harbor Day that night. And the next morning, the 8th of December, 1944, we disembarked, my first march on foreign soil, and set up camp there until all the ships were unloaded and everything. We spent several weeks there until we boarded trains, little 48s, that took us up to the front lines.
Had you encountered any bad weather on the seas?
No, we did not. We cut down from New York City, and for the first 2 days, all of us were rolling in heave, and I just stayed in bed for 2 days. I couldn't stand up until we got used to the roll. And then after that, we seemed to all recover and we were all set. But as soon as we got past Bermuda, then we cut across the mid-Atlantic, and we didn't encounter any bad weather the rest of the way across.
Okay.
And
So we disembarked at Marseille.
Marseille, France, right. And then spent 2 weeks there at the Delta staging area, they called it, about in the mountains up just north of town, until everybody, like I said, all the ships and everything had disembarked and had everybody assembled ready to, with the trucks and everything, to go up to the front. And we got up to the front in late December on the Rhine River. Actually, I spent Christmas Eve on the Rhine River with the Germans on one side of it, and their potholes of their little dugouts, and they were singing Christmas songs. Well, they're in German, but I could understand the tunes. And that was really an odd feeling as far as the war is concerned.
I'm sitting here saying to myself, if you disembarked on July or December 7th,
8th,
or 8th,
the next morning, right?
You spent 2 weeks
Staging area.
in the staging area. That was during the Battle of the Bulge.
That is correct. We got up there just to the front line, just when that was going on. We were south end of the Battle of the Bulge. That was the First Army. Third Army was north of it. We were the 7th Army south of it. And they weren't that far away, no.
Okay, so you were part of the 7th Army.
Correct.
You're 63rd Division of the 7th Army.
Correct.
Okay. And did your, was this an infantry
Yes.
division?
Okay,
Okay.
63rd Infantry Division.
63rd was an infantry division.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
This is their,
Oh, okay. That's their
badge.
insignia?
Yeah, their insignia, right.
Yes. Right here's, actually, that's the 7th, right? 7th.
7th Army, 63rd Division was the infantry division.
Okay.
I was with the 253rd Regiment.
Oh, okay.
Actually, it's even, this is better. I'll get a picture of it. I joined the 63rd Infantry Division, we call it the Blood and Fire. That's,
Oh, okay.
one of the postcards. I joined in 1958.
Yeah, I mean,
And I was with the 253rd Regiment. I was the medical detachment. It was 363rd.
okay.
But when we got overseas, we became part of the each regiment. We were assigned to each regiment. But we had a battalion aid station for each regiment.
Okay.
So it was the 253rd Medical Detachment. It kept changing around depending upon what you were doing, what type of action or where you were in the front. And we went up and down the Rhine. We stayed in several places back and forth for a month and a half until the 16th of February when at Sarreguemines, France, they said, this is it. At 3 o'clock in the morning, they came and shook you up. We got you out of your bedrolls and leave everything. And you got up and you start marching. They assigned us to B Company to push off across the Rhine going to Germany. And on that date, 4 days before my 19th birthday.
And in the time between like the 25th of December and when they,
We just sat on the line and
so you're,
just staying around. We were Sargumines, France most of the time. But we had we'd pick up a house and use it as an Italian aid station.
you know how to spell Sargumines?
Sargumines?
Or S-A-R-G, is it?
Let's see, right, the troop train, blue fronts. Sargumines. It's a long name. But that's it. And that was my entry into combat. It was the starting of many stories, which is in my story that I had here. When we pushed off at 3 o'clock in the morning across the river, the engineers had put up a pontoon bridge across at that point it's the Star River. You shoot off from the Rhine, up the Rhine River a ways, and then it's the Star River. And this pontoon bridge was, like I said, was put up, crossed over, B Company. We went in a single line across this pontoon bridge. Then it was the first aid man, and then the last to follow up in line was the aid men, which is myself. We were litter bearers, 4 of us. So there's actually 5 medics, 4 litter bearers, and actually the medic that's going to be the medical man when needed.
Okay.
So we're marching across. They said, we're going up to this railroad bridge, and we're going to get on this railroad bridge, railroad line, and don't step off of the ties there because there's foot lines planted along in there. So stay in the ties, and we're going to march in. By now it's 4 o'clock in the morning. It's foggy, and I'm stumbling. I'm nearsighted. I'm the last man. I wasn't carrying anything. One of the other men in front of me had the litter, and we're marching along in the dark. And I mean, I am frightened. I am nervous, and I'm walking down. I put my head down low so I could see the ties. I didn't want to step in between the ties after that morning. And all of a sudden I saw a big hole with a mine or something blowing out the center of the railroad between the tracks. So I went trying to step to the side of it, over the track, and get a tie on the side there, and I thought I could step around it. Well, I was on a bridge and I fell over and landed in a dry riverbed. Knocked me out. And there I lay. I finally came to. I don't know what I lost. I lost my helmet, everything. I don't know which side of the river I was on, but I scrambled up the bank, found the tracks, and I started running. I couldn't see anybody. They didn't know I was the last man. Nobody knew I was lost or gone. And I started running, and I didn't care. Stepping off the track through the ties. I was going in about 10 or 15 minutes, so I couldn't have been knocked out long. I caught up to him. The last man in the long line. It was one of the, like I said, one of the other litter bearers. He didn't even know I was gone. He didn't even know that I'd fallen off. I guess I didn't scream or anything. So we caught up to him, and no helmet, nothing. Well, I don't know what else, like I said, dropped off of me. And all of a sudden we got in another march for another hour, and then machine gun fire opened up. It appeared that some Germans had spotted us walking along the tracks, even with the fog and everything. So we hit the tiles and everything in between the tracks, fell down, and trying to protect ourselves from the gunfire. And while we were doing that, the squad tried to circle around behind them, cut these guys off, and take care of them. In the meantime, I'm laying there, and no helmet. I'm frightened. I grabbed the 30 caliber machine gun cannon, put it over my head, held it to protect my head. No bullet ever hit that damn cannon bullets, I would blow my head off. I didn't know. You know, so frightened, didn't know what it was good. What you gonna do?
Sure.
But the one squad who jumped off to the side got behind me. These guys are cutting us off and annihilated them. And so we were able to get up and start marching again. And we marched another hour in. By then it was 6 o'clock, and it was so light we could see what was going on. And he said, okay, this is where we're cutting off, we're going to surround Hanweiler, cut off the town, and then so we can push them to the river, get rid of that group.
Hanweiler was the town?
In Germany, right,
Okay.
Hanweiler, Germany. And so we marched across, when we took off from the tracks, there was a bunch of big open ground, and big muddy, like a mound, but a lot of woods and trees around. And another half hour, all of a sudden he said, you got your first patient. And some big 200-pound Iowan boy got shot, couldn't walk. So we got to him, we loaded him on the litter, and turned around and had followed right back past the same fields and everything, and this mountain of mud and everything we came in. We started back, well, some more Germans on the other side of the line spotted us, and they started opening fire on us with mortars. And the mortars come down, and we'd land, and if you know anything about mortars, they aim 1, 2, and the third one's supposed to hit you, because they're trying to zero in on you. Well, they zeroed in, the first 2 dropped, and picked up this kid and started running like hell. And I mean, it was heavy. I'm on the back side of the litter, and I mean, we're dying. This 18-year-old kid just couldn't have it. And we run a few hundred yards, and we had to set him down again. All of a sudden, boom, 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 you had to pick him up and run again. That lasted for about another half hour, and we were able to hit some more woods on the other side, and they couldn't see us anymore. So we made our way back to the tracks, and we carried this kid 2.5 miles back to Sarga Mines. We got to the river again. We were able to put him on the Jeep and send him in. And I found out that that trip took us over 6 hours for 2.5 miles, and I got a Bronze Star for it. And I got a real nice citation here. Got the Bronze Star, and it has all that information on it. That's my first encounter in combat.
Can you take that out of there?
Sure.
No, just take the loose leaf out.
Yeah, it'll be all blurry for
No,
it just slides out.
I'll read this as best I can. It says, William J. Shier, Jr., Private First Class, Medical Department Medical Detachment, 253rd Infantry Regiment, for her heroic achievement in action on 16 February 1945 in the vicinity of Auersmacher, Germany. Private First Class Shier, a member of a litter bearer team working for an advanced litter relay post which had been cut off from the battalion aid station by enemy strong points and sniper fire, picked up a seriously wounded American soldier from an exposed position and proceeded to evacuate him. In the face of enemy fire and extreme physical hardships, the litter squad carried the casualty approximately 2.5 miles, taking 6 hours to complete their mission, on 2 occasions being pinned down by enemy fire. Entered military service from Detroit, Michigan. Signed, Louis E. Hibbs, Major General, U.S. Army Commanding. Excellent.
So anyways.
Thank you. That's the first Bronze Star we've had.
Well, that was my first incident.
Okay.
The rest of them, I think, warranted as much, but as just one of those things, this was presented, so we send in. But my war experiences just continued like that. It was one thing after the other. I don't know how much of that you want to be.
All of it.
All of it? I have to refresh my memory now.
Sure.
And I received the Bronze Star. Okay, the chase continues. The next big experience I had was in the middle of March, going to St. Ingbert's, Germany. That's where what do they call that line? The Siegfried line.
Oh,
and
Siegfried line.
well, and we got into freed, we set up at St. Ingrid's, and set up another post for us, another aid station in one of the homes. And the city was pretty well and still intact and vacated. And I took a stroll down Main Street, down into town, started looking around, was by myself. And the action at that time was just nothing going on. And I saw a nice house that nothing disturbed or anything. So I just stepped into it to look around and see what it was like inside. I'm always interested in homes and architecture anyway. And I looked around it, and it was basically empty, the house. All the rooms were empty, and I wandered from one room to the other. It was a nice big place. And all of a sudden I got to the back bedroom though, and here's a chest of drawers sitting in the one corner of the room and nothing else in the room. For some reason or other, I don't know what it is, it's got to be guidance from up there. I ignored it, and I could see up in the closet some things sitting on a shelf. I reached up there, and there was photo albums, and there was a couple of them, and they were war albums, propaganda albums that set up by the Nazis and the Germans. And they're pretty good. They're in 3D, they had 3D glasses. And so I picked them up, put them under my arm, grabbed them, went back to the aid station, and the sergeant chastised me for picking these things up again. He said, "Don't you know there's all booby traps around here?" He says, "Don't touch any of this stuff." Well, I wasn't back at the aid station in half an hour when they brought in another GI with his hands blowing off. He said he'd gone into a house and saw a chest of drawers in the back room, and opened one of the drawers and it blew off his hands. Same house I was in. I got spared. And that was another one of my adventures. And the next time, we got a call to pick up a wounded soldier out of no man's land. We were, most of us combat medics, that's where I spend my time. I mean, you're frightened, you have jitters sometimes, and you just don't want to go, but you know it's your duty, and you get up the courage, and I'll go out to the location, and the Jeep driver could only get us to a certain part of the woods and everything, and he wanted to stay hidden in the woods, so we got out the litter team, and we were told that this wounded GI was in a foxhole about 40 yards out in the middle of no man's land, in a great big field. We found out the Germans with the tanks and everything were on the other side of the field.
So no man's land was between the American lines and the German lines.
And I was out there. And so we crawled down on our stomachs, so we couldn't give a good view. There was a lot of reeds and everything. The grass was high, you know, and in this meadow, whatever it was. And we crawled out there and we found the foxhole. So we reached down to help him lift him out, and he let out one hell of a scream. It could be heard from here to Mexico. We grabbed a hold of him and yanked him and threw him on the litter and just ran like as fast as we could for the woods. We had no sooner started, and boom, 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 the 80s were flying all over us. The Germans had heard it too from their tanks, and they opened up fire on us. And I mean, they're firing at me with 88s from the tank. And we just ran, we got to the woods, and we thought enough protection there, we were exhausted. We put him down on the ground, and we all flopped down on the ground around him, face down. And we just laid there, and the firing went on for at least 15, 20 minutes. It seemed like hours. And it finally ceased, and I looked up, and the tops of all the trees in this whole woods were cut off. And when I stood up and looked around, there were splinters 2 foot to 5 foot stuck in the ground, and it looked like an outline that you see, a chalk outline for a murder mystery, you know, for a victim. All around us, not one of us was hit. And I spent all that time with my nose in my prayer book like this, and I was praying all this time. This is the prayer book. I still have it. And I had that like this until the firing ended. And then we got up, picked them up, and carried them out to the Jeep, and again, it escaped. But how none of us were ever hit, I'll never know. And I just can't believe the fire that came fire
So
out.
they were using the type of ammunition that exploded in the air rather than...
Yeah, these were tanks. Yeah, those tank ammunition. It wasn't for personnel. For us, it just blew the tops of the trees off. I mean, it was devastating. But again, I escaped. And not one of us was hit. And we picked them up, looking back and saved our
Mm.
wounded man again. That was another time. And there's always something though. I mean, then you might get a day or two rest.
How long was your combat group in action?
I only spent 60 days exactly,
60 days.
right from the 16th of February until I was captured on April 16th, 1945.
Okay.
I was captured on the Monday morning, April 16th. But this is another one right here.
Okay.
Talk about a step away. There's another one I went big times. Again, we had a call for a wounded up at the front. And the Jeep driver took us as far as we could, and they come to a great big ridge, 20 or 30 feet high, big mound, and they said someplace over that, so he parked there. The four of us grabbed our litter and started up over this giant ridge and down the other side. And there was a long, big open meadow, a large meadow, acres and acres. So we crossed the meadow, walked across it, and you could see the woods on the other side, and we were hoping that's where the wounded guy was. So we got across this meadow in about a half hour. We went into the woods, and sure enough, we come across B Company, the one platoon where they had the wounded, and they pointed them out and found them. And we put them on the litter, started back for that mound to get it back to the Jeep, so we could be returned to the hospital. But as we were walking back, we got to the meadow, and all of a sudden, all we saw was a bunch of engineers. The engineers had come up behind us. They have this white tape all over this field like you couldn't believe. And we said, we got to get back, take this wounded man back. He says, I'm sorry. He says, this field's loaded with foot mines. I said, but we just walked across here half an hour ago, all of us. He says, I'm sorry. He says, you can't go there. He says, we got a safe corridor over there. Pull that white tape around, take this white tape corridor out, and I'll get you safely back to the mountain where you were going. This field was just loaded with landmines, and the four of us marched across that thing and never stepped on one once.
Oh, good God.
Yep. So we got up there into the mound, and we had to carry this guy up over this mound again, and I'm on the back again. And halfway up the darn mound, I sprained my ankle. I turned and twisted it. It was such a job. And I fell and almost dropped the wounded guy down, but the other guy saw it happen. They all dropped and set the litter down. And I waited for a few minutes and struggled with it. My foot was in pain. I couldn't believe it. And finally I said, well, we got to get out of here. So I just picked it up and hobbled along, and we picked him up and got him to the other side and got him back to the Jeep and got him back safely. And fortunately, there wasn't a lot of action. Like I said, we weren't getting much action at that time because at this point the Germans were really running now. And but so I had a couple days rest to get my ankle healed enough so I could continue on and stay with the group without going back to the hospital or something.
Mm-hmm.
That was another close call. This one here was a short one. We were marching, we started marching to the next town, and it was one of these little villages in Germany. The village was up on both sides of the hillside thing, with the road just going down the center, probably the Southern Alps, or beginning of the Southern Alps. And all of a sudden, from a couple of houses up on the left-hand side, Germans opened fire on us. There were some squads, guys hidden up there. We all fell into we were in the street, so I fell down, and they had high curbs at that time, green and everything. I got my head right up against the curb and stayed there, trying to avoid the gunfire. And one of the squads ran around, made their way around to the back, tried to get them and wipe them out too to stop the fire, which they did eventually. But in the meantime, we were all laying there in the street, the ones that were behind, and a potato masher, one of their hand grenades, they call them potato mashers, had flung it down and landed on the curb right next to my head. And the shrapnel bounced off of my helmet, and my ears were ringing for a couple hours. But that's the closest I come right there. A couple times I did have shrapnel jump off of my hands, but I never draw one screw of blood. So that was my closest calls as far as personal injury is
Well,
concerned.
it had to be
Yeah, that's scary.
Now, did you see the potato masher before it went off?
No, I had my face buried in the gutter. Oh, no.
Okay.
And one of the oddest things in the war was Heidelberg, our next town. Heidelberg, Germany, for some reason or other, well, it was probably because of the college, they declared it an open city, and I never heard of this before. There's to be no gunfire either side. It's something the commanders said because of the college and what have you. So we marched into town. Actually, at that time, we were driving the three-quarter trucks and everything, the medical supplies and everything. I was on a three-quarter truck. And we came into town looking for another house to set up our aid station. And here's all the Germans, the soldiers, and the civilians, everybody around. And oh man, this is weird. You know, you can't fire at them. They're looking at you funny, and you're looking at them funny. And but it was an open city. But the odd part of this is, the next morning we packed up to leave town, and a lot of the trucks are going like this down the road. And later that day I found out that a lot of the GIs had gone in, there was a lot of wineries and beer houses there, and they'd thrown out all the stuff off of the trucks and everything. They were half loaded, and they had cases of beer and stuff loaded on their trucks and then taken away. And I found out that a bunch of non-coms and some officers were degraded lower in the rank that day, and they found out about it. They were half looped as we were pulling out of town. They were all celebrating. It was something to do, seeing an open city. It was really an oddball thing.
About when was that?
That was Easter Sunday, April 1st.
April 1st, okay.
1945, Easter Sunday.
Okay, so we're getting closer to...
Yes, now it's 2 weeks to go before I get captured.
Yeah, but the troops now can start smelling that it's going to be
It's over, yeah.
Yeah.
My next chapter is the final 2 weeks. Now we're just racing along, and we're coming to the end. And we're not doing a heck of a lot. And on that Sunday, 2 weeks after the Monday morning, I get up and the sergeant says, get a squad together, we have to go out, there's a wounded guy in B Company, and we're going to, after breakfast, we're going to go out, pick him up and bring him back. And since there's nothing else going on, the Jeep driver was the first lieutenant, our officer, he was a medical officer, and the staff sergeant, our sergeant, squad sergeant, all came with us. 7 of us piled in the Jeep on that Monday morning, April 16th, and headed out to the woods looking for this wounded guy in Company B. I found out something later on. If I ever got a hold of this particular aid man, he would have been in trouble in my younger days. But he didn't tell us that he was surrounded by the Germans. When he asked us to come out and get the wounded guy, he was surrounded by the Germans.
Oh.
We found it out later. So we pulled off into the woods looking for him, and we're going a nice little blacktop road through the Black Forest. With the Black Forest down there, and all of a sudden we see a bunch of Germans, 4 or 5 of them, just in their pants, and they're at the horse trough out in front, washing off. I said, "Oh man, the medics are going to take some more German prisoners here." We were bringing them in because they were all surrendering a lot by then. And so we stopped the Jeep, and these 5 Germans turn around and see us, and they race into the farmhouse. And we sit there and wait a couple of minutes, and all of a sudden they come out, the whole damn squad come out, and they all got automatic weapons and are firing away. They almost cut the Jeep in half. They tore us up. We leaped out of the Jeep to the other side and running and down, jumped in a ditch to save ourselves. And well, they yelled, "Achtung," and surrender, come out, And so we put our hands over heads and marched out. That was it. The 7 of us were captured.
Anybody hurt?
The sergeant was lucky. One bullet went between his glass here and skinned his nose, and another one between his legs. He was the only one. But they had the driver put the Jeep underneath the trees and everything to hide it, so nobody knew. Then he started marching us back. And I mean, I was never so damn frightened in all my life. Why should they keep us alive? It's the end of the war. I mean, they don't want to keep us and feed us and everything, and I expected to be shot any minute. And that's the way it was. And that went on for over several weeks until I was freed on May 1st.
Did they take you to in a German camp or?
They started to. They took us back first to the headquarters of the particular group that was there, that squad. And then they took us back to their company headquarters, interrogated us again. And at that interrogation, another time we escaped. This Germans spoke very good English. They took us in the back of this farmhouse, one at a time, brought us in there. And he knew all about me. I guess the other guys didn't. I don't know what they did, but he knew who I was and what outfit I was with and everything. He says, you know, we're losing a lot of good men because of you guys. And I says, good. And I got a butt-headed. But right across my skull. I shouldn't have made that smart remark. And so he just marched us out. And then we went back to division headquarters and got interrogated again. And then we got back to one more place. I don't know, I can't remember where we stayed. Most of the nights it was in a barn or something. That night, we were all in the barn, and the Germans came in there and started calling off names. They called for Lieutenant Jordan, and he stood up and he said, go over to the door there of the barn, and then he shouted another name, and it was like Shier, 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 and it didn't sound like Shier to me, so I didn't say anything. And finally the German came over, he says, don't you know your own name? And he slapped me, he says, you, get over with him. So they put me over with the lieutenant and the two of us. They marched us out and we left the other guys behind. And they took the two of us, and I found out that as a courtesy, officers are always excluded from the enlisted men, and they always have a enlisted man with an officer as his aide.
Is that right?
Do his work for him. And I was selected as the aide. So they marched the two of us off, and they took us to some other house. And in the morning, they stuck us in a Mercedes-Benz convertible and drove us back to the Army headquarters. And they took us to another farmhouse and marched us in. And here was a guy in an old gray tattered uniform in the back. And he had an interpreter. And we started questioning Lieutenant Jordan. And I find out that this is the main medical officer for that German army at that time. And all he was asking Lieutenant Jordan was about the latest in medical advice and everything, and what was going on, you know, the different things as far as medicine is concerned. That's all he wanted to know. And when he got done with the interview, he said, well, you know, you're medics, what do you know? They marched us back and took us to another firehouse. And in the morning, next morning there, we met up with what we called a transporter group. It was a company of German soldiers, and they were all old men that couldn't fight at the front. And what they did is they picked you up and took you as a group, whoever they had, to the next camp back for transport you to the next prisoner war camp, or whatever camp you were going to. And these guys, I mean, they're old and battered. Some of them were 40, 45 years old. They really beat up.
Do you have any idea where
We were,
in Germany you were at this time?
because I don't know for nothing then, they only marched you during the night. In the daytime, we were stuck in a barn on the farm someplace for that 2.5 weeks while I was a prisoner. And then we met the group that we met up through. They had 5 other prisoners already. There was 2 Air Force flyers from Britain, fighter pilots. There was 2 Air Corps men from the 8th Air Force, and there was a GI. Not from the Air Force. There was the 2 British, the 2 Americans, and the 1 GI that had escaped from the camp. And they were taking him back again. He had escaped, and they caught him again. So there was the 7 of us, and they start marching back with them. And like I said, we march at night. Pitch black. You don't know where you're at or anything. And then in the daytime, you'd be in the barn. You just sit around and clean up. And they fed you a bowl of what they call soup. It was boiled water. And if they found a potato or some greens out of a field or something, that was it. And then a piece of black bread. I don't know where they got that bread from, but every day they had about a quarter piece of loaf that they could give each of us. And we had to eat. That was our meal for all that time. And just march. And one time we went across the railroad bridge. river bridge, and they said it was the Danube River, so I know I crossed the Danube River one night. But most of the time we were up in the mountains, and if it was a good sunlight or a moonlight night, it was beautiful to just look at the mountains. But other times I'd be afraid to step out. I wouldn't try to escape because the mountains, you don't know where the heck you're at, you know. Just a chin was really shaky, and I waited for them to shoot us. And as it happened, that third or fourth day in, we come across a SS group, and he went up to our commander, and he actually was nothing but a flunky officer of the Wehrmacht, and he said, give us those guys. That's bad, I know you're gonna. He said, we'll get rid of them for you. There's no sense in feeding them, taking them along. We're gonna get rid of them for you. And the guy says, no. He says, they're my prisoners. He says, and I'm not turning over anybody but the camp commander where I'm supposed to, where I'm authorized. And for some reason, when he talked to the SS out, taking us to shoot us. I was saved again. And then another oddball thing happened. We were stopped in another town, and it was still alive at night for some reason or other. It was a I don't know the name of the town, but anyways, it was the German soldiers wanted to go in and have a beer nap and whatever they had in this place. It was like a beer garden. It probably had some food to it. And they asked if any of us wanted to go in. I said, yeah, I'd like to go in. So I went in, and the barmaid said, you know, do you have any money? And I said, yeah. And I pulled out those German francs. You know those francs that they gave you, the Army World War II money here? This year?
No,
I still had my own money.
oh,
That's still some of it. I still have some of it left.
why don't you pull it out and we'll,
And she
just
accepted it. I got myself a drink, a soft drink.
excellent. Cool.
The first thing though, before they serve you, they ask you if you're a Flieger. Because if you were Air Force, they did all these bombing and everything, they'd take you out and kill you with a pitchfork.
I'll be darned. So the U.S. gave you this money?
Yes, yes, parts.
Oh, it's script.
yes,
That's,
script money, yeah.
okay.
You can use it, I don't know why, for the Germans, why they would sell it to you anyways. I don't understand that, but
Yeah.
they gave you German money, and my
Excellent.
brother's Japanese money is on the back. My brother
Oh,
was
okay.
in Japan. They got his Japanese money too.
And she took it.
And she took it. Whatever.
Oh.
I gave her one of my bills and she took it. And that was it. And that was another weird thing. You just can't believe the weird things. So, then comes April 30th, and we come to the end of the line. The German guards informed us that the Russians were over just over the next ridge. And said, we're not going any further, this is it. And Lieutenant Jordan and the other two English officers said, why don't you turn around and surrender to us and we'll take you back, march you back. And the German officer said, I'm afraid. He says, what security do I have? And I found out the only reason he kept us was security for him. He was keeping us as hostages. That's why he didn't turn us over to the SS as a bargaining point in case just this situation happened, and it did. He says, well, I don't know. He says, well, I'm a little afraid about this. Is there anything we can do? Well, it turns out there was a Polish POW working this last farm we were on, and they said, well, why don't we send him out and see if we can't pick up some American troops that would back us up.
Mm-hmm.
And so they did. They sent him out. He came up with Audrey Murphy's outfit.
I'll be darned.
The 3rd Division. They're out there. They brought in a platoon the next morning, May 1st, and the German guards then turned their guns over to us. They surrendered to us, and the 3rd Division guys went with the backup, and we turned around and marched them back.
So the medics captured some more troops.
Well, we were all medics there. It was everything
Right.
at that point. But the 7 of us, we were medics and Air Force guys, and so we got it on a 2.5 ton truck that the 3rd Division let us have. They took all prisoners anybody that could repatriate, what do you call it? Repatriate. They take you back. They had a camp in Mannheim, Germany, about 200 miles over back to the Rhine River. And so after they cleared up and took the Germans, prisoners away from us and everything, the 3rd Division took them off our hands. We got on the truck and they started to drive us back to the camp at that afternoon. But that was 30 miles, as Byberg was 30 miles southeast of Munich. And we took the main highway, goes up through Munich, and then 30 miles the other side of it was Dachau.
Oh.
And they had just repatriated that the day before. April 30th, I don't know what division came in and freed them, took the Germans away from there. But they got to the camp, and the truck driver says, I just heard that we can get in here, and I want to take a look at it. He says, do you mind if we stop and don't, for half hour or something, not continue on while I go and look around and see what it's like in this camp? So he did, and all the other prisoners, the guys who were with me, they all jumped off, and I was still damn frightened. I sat on the truck all by myself. I wouldn't get out. I mean, the war's not over with. They could counterattack or anything, come back and get us. And I sat there, and all of a sudden they're not coming back and not coming back. So I got out of the truck and walked over, and we were right at the front of the camp, right at the main gate going into Dachau, sitting right on the street in front of it. The big iron gates, fences going down both ways. So I saw something hanging or something down at one end of the fence down there, so I turned around and I walked down and see what it was, and here's a bunch of these former prisoners. Just, and some of them, all the tattered clothes, and all of it was just bones and skulls with no skin on them and anything, and they were still alive. And I looked at them, and I just burst out in tears and ran back to the truck, and I couldn't stand it. And that's all I wanted to know about Dachau. And I even have the Dachau medal. I got a Dachau camp now.
Mm.
A little medal on the back.
Oh, on the back. Okay.
That's Dachau.
That means
Somebody
you-
knew I was there, and they gave it to me.
You were there, yeah. Mm.
And that's how it is until is there anything else you want to ask? That's my 60 days of actual combat duty.
Okay, now you were repatriated, and then what happened?
Well, they got back to Mannheim, the camp there, and there was thousands of prisoners there. They, as soon as they drove into camp, they don't let you go with anybody. They drove you right over to some big canvas tents, they're big, khaki tents that they have. They marched us all in one end, you stripped naked, because everything had to be deloused. They didn't want you with any of that clothes or anything, and they sprayed us and washed us down, and you marched out the other side of the tent and gave you all new clothes and everything. But they didn't take everything away from me. They didn't take away my prayer book, they didn't take away my medical thing, they didn't take away my armband, they didn't take away my shears or my dog tags or my ID.
Why don't you hold that up for us, Bill?
This, if you were an army man, the new army, you could read my story right
Okay.
here.
Yeah, you have to tip it a little bit forward for the camera.
All right.
No, you have to tip it forward.
Forward?
Yeah,
Okay.
to
Oh, I
get the
see what you
glare,
mean.
to get the glare off.
Okay.
Now, if you can tell us,
Right. We will start with on this side. I can't see my finger on this side.
yeah,
But there's the
it's-
medals here.
yeah,
This is when I first went to Camp Hood, Texas. That's when rifleman
it's
badge.
yours. Okay,
And then from there, I went, then got transferred to 63rd Division, and I have my 63rd Division
right
Right
there on
here,
the left-hand
right.
side.
and my BFC stripe here, and my 6-month badge overseas,
Right,
and this armband for the medics had. That's what you had on you, and your scissors. You always had those in your pockets with some Band-Aids. And in this army thing is this was set up for the Geneva Convention. All non-military, what do you call them?
non-combatant,
Non-combatants had to have this.
okay.
And you'll see it's an odd date. The picture was taken on Halloween.
Oh,
I got a Halloween picture of me on it, and they didn't take it away from me, but you had to have it.
right,
So I kept that in my dog tags. And then my medals. Here's
Okay.
this was your bronze medal, This is my prisoner of war medal.
Okay,
And this is my European theater fighting medal.
okay,
This is the American zone time that I spent in the Army. And this is the victory medal for the Second World War.
okay.
And then a good old good conduct
Good
medal.
conduct.
I had this made up last year for $125. I had all the stuff sitting around in different drawers and everything. And I finally went ahead and done it. It hangs up in a room. Oh, geez, I didn't even say anything. The combat medic medal.
I was
the
gonna
best
ask you about that, is that,
That's the best one. You're darn right. That's the combat medic.
so that's,
Right there. That's what
where-
you have.
you have the combat infantryman badge,
That's
then you have the
medic.
combat medal.
That is correct.
Excellent,
Right.
excellent. What else do you have in there that would be of,
Of interest?
yeah?
Well, let's see. What did I do? Well, I have all of the papers here. I'm a paper saver.
Okay, well,
This was all the papers when I was drafted. My first
Okay.
draft card. I have all of that. Here's a picture of the boys. Here's the guys that I was with at Camp Hood, Texas, who
Okay.
graduated with me. And here's my first pictures in Camp Hood, Texas.
okay,
And here's my pictures in Germany. And this is in Sargemines. We spent most of our time in Sargemine. There's my group. Here's a picture of that there.
okay,
Here's the Stevedore Club. I came home on leave. That's where I spent it with my family.
okay,
There's only 2 of us alive on there now. All the rest of them are dead. This is the telegram to my mother telling her I was captured. And here's the letter I wrote to my mother about my party in New York when I took the last leave before going overseas.
fessing up to your mom.
Yeah, I got court-martialed for that, by the way.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, because I wasn't supposed to go.
Oh,
When we got to Camp Shanks, New York, the first week, there was nothing to do. And I went into the barracks, and I laid on the bunk and fell asleep. I was easy, fell asleep, and some officer came in, I don't know who he was from, he caught me there, so they said, "You're confined to barracks, you take care of the fires, and all of these fire pots are on here for the rest of our stay till we ship out of New York." And on Thursday, that was Monday, and on Thursday he says, "You go around and ask anybody else who wants to last leave into New York City, get their name on the list and turn it into so they can get a pass for the weekend." So I went around and got all the names for the passes and everything, and when I got all done, I said, "Why didn't I put mine on?" And so I added my name to the list, and I got a pass on Friday morning, and I took off for New York, and I had a lot of fun, did lots of things, saw, got on TV, the first TV, and but I wasn't supposed to. And I went dance. I got to dance with Miss America, 1945,
I'll be
Bess
there.
Meyerson. And I got back to camp the Sunday night, and they were all waiting for me at the gate. I said, "What are you doing?" They took me in, court-martialed me. They had the officers up there. And he said, "Don't you know you're supposed to stay at camp?" I says, "Yeah, but he gave me a pass major." I said, "So I went." He says, "Yeah, but you should have honored the verbal order of staying in camp." I said, "I might go overseas and get shot and killed." I says, "In the next couple of weeks." I said, "I wasn't worried about that."
Yeah,
So they said, "Well, you stay there for now on," and they didn't never put up my records, nothing.
yeah, no.
But I don't know, I was so shy and everything. I can't understand being that bold. It surprised myself. It's probably what's kept me alive all this time.
Probably.
Yeah. Here's War Department. These are all the telegrams to my mother and everything, and letters from this is from Wayland telling me that we were all released and telling the rest of the guys at the camp. And when I came back, they send you a 60 days R&R.
Right.
I went to the Arlington Hotel in Hot Springs, Arkansas. I spent 2 weeks there, and then what they do is after your 2 weeks there, they reassign you. And since you're a prisoner of war, they can't send you back into action. But they want, until you have enough points to be discharged, you have to spend your time someplace.
Right.
So being a medic, the closest place to home, they said, would be Percy Jones Hospital in Battle Creek, Michigan. So
Okay.
I was reassigned to Battle Creek, Michigan. I
Not
spent
bad.
my time there. I got to do a lot of things there. Here's my passes and everything. And I could go home on the weekends or if I had time off, I'd get on the train and come back to Detroit.
Sure.
And a couple days off. I got people in the service. I told you it was bad with names and everything. I don't know who any of these people are.
Okay.
I have no idea. If it was a date or something like that. And finally, the time came. These are all the passes. I have all the passes when I went to New York City.
Ah,
All
okay.
of the buildings I went into. I got all of that stuff from you. My train tickets, my discharge, the second copy, the good copies in the vault.
Mhm.
And coming home, applying for the medals and joining the division. I did that. This is from the Secretary of the Army, another thing.
Right.
Told me I got a prisoner of war medal. There's my plate. I have a prisoner of war plate. You know,
Oh,
You get a
okay.
free plate
Sure.
in Michigan. This
Sure.
is the first one here, and this is POW. And we had the thing 6 months, and they said, oh, they're not POWs, they're ex-POWs. So he had said, throw it away. Well, I wouldn't throw it away. So I got another plate. Now I've had this plate for 20 years. 20 years I haven't had to buy a license plate. It's
Beautiful.
hundreds of dollars every year.
Right.
These are pictures of those books I got in that house in St. Igberg.
Oh, okay.
They might be worth $10,000 now. They're all the war. I got them from Hitler and everything, and all
Sure.
3D stereo. And then stuff I picked up from going to school.
Okay.
Uh,
What's that one that says Actu?
that was on the stuff I mailed home.
Oh,
I mailed a bunch of swords and stuff home those books I mailed them home before we went further into Germany.
okay. Now,
And the last thing here, you gotta see the last thing though before we go. There's, I told you I quit school in the 10th grade.
right.
I had enough credits and never knew it to graduate.
Beautiful.
My daughter's the counselor in the schools in Anchor Bay.
Yeah.
And she talked to the principal and the people there, and they said, he's got enough, he's getting a certificate. So they got me the diploma, and I marched with the kids and went out and graduated.
Beautiful.
That's
That,
what
that was
they put it in the news.
that was 4 years ago, eh?
Yep, they put it in the paper, on my 70th birthday, 75th birthday.
Excellent.
So,
Excellent.
so I graduated finally.
Yeah.
I had everybody there, big party.
Yeah, wonderful. How'd you get back to the States?
We stayed at the Mannheim there for 2 weeks,
Okay.
and then as soon as they had enough mint processed, they flew you into Le Havre, France,
Okay.
which was shot up and everything, and you went right out to the harbor and boarded the ship. So
Okay.
you start a convoy, take you back,
Okay.
and the ship I went on, same name as the one I came on,
Is that right?
except it was with a B. I came on the Thomas H. Berry and went home on the William T. Berry, which was a Liberty ship.
Oh.
One of Kaiser's originals. And all you had was one hole with these canvas 5 high bunks all the way around the hole. We all stuffed there, 300 of us. And you spent 2 weeks there, coming back. We left, we pulled out of Le Havre on the 18th of May, my wife's birthday. My wife's birthday was just on Friday too. And then we got married on the 21st of May. Everything's the May to me. I got
Yeah.
anniversaries and everything. So then we went over to Southampton to pick up the rest of the convoy. We stayed there for 2 days till the 20th of May. And when they had the convoy assembled, we took off across the North Atlantic and headed they stayed north trying to avoid some submarines. Like I said, the war just ended. It
Right.
ended while I was in the camp there, the 7th of May. And then they celebrated the 8th of May. So the war was over a week, and then all the submarines hadn't checked in yet. And we got about halfway across to Nova Scotia, we got the word that the last of them had reported in, and the seas were clear. So they turned on all the lights on the ship. They had running lights, all the ships behind us. It looked like a parade coming down Broadway.
I'll
You
be
couldn't
there.
believe it. It was a beautiful sight. We sailed in there, and we sailed into New York. Then we got in we actually wanted to do it because we had to go to the camp there to Newark, New Jersey, and that was the 4th of June that I landed there. And then that time until I was discharged May 1st, I got my calling in on May 1st of 44, released from the Germans on May 1st, 1945, and I was discharged from the Army on May 1st, 1946.
Where were you discharged at?
at Fort Sheridan, Illinois.
At Fort Sheridan?
Yeah. I was at, like I told you, I was at Bruce Jones Hospital there.
Right.
That's where you spent your time till you had enough points to get out. And actually, that was one time I spoke up again. They were sending around the file in the hospital to all of the troops that those had enough points to put your name on, or your name would be on this list, so you'd be discharged the following first of May.
Right.
And I counted up, I had enough points, why isn't my name on here? So I went up to the officer and I said, of the day, and I said, how come I'm not on here? And he looked at it and he checked. He says, you're right, you should be on there. You should be discharged May 1st. Put my name down, I was out.
Excellent.
So, and that was it.
And then what did Bill Shier do? Did
He came home and loafed.
he loaf?
Yeah, I didn't have, like I said, I wasn't driven. I could have gone and been on anything, because when they took my tests and everything, they put me in one of those high IQ things. And that's why one of the reasons I became a medic. I said, you know, you could have done more, and I could have. But I just wouldn't push myself. I just wasn't ambitious enough. But my wife was ambitious. I looked around, I met her the day I got out.
Okay.
And we had our first date on May 5th that year. And we
How'd you
dated for
meet
3
her on the
years.
day you got out?
No, actually, I ran into her on a couple of these weekends that I
Oh,
got home.
okay.
I used to hang out at the CYO Center on the
Okay.
east side. It was a Catholic youth organization, took over the Deutsches Hall there on in Maxwell. And I ran into her there at the jukebox a couple of times.
Okay.
And she was from St. Catherine's, and I was from St. Catherine's. She was a year behind me, but we didn't know each other in school. But as soon as I got home on the first, I called her and set up a date for that Sunday. May 1st went out on our first date then. Okay. And we dated for 3 years, and then on her 21st birthday, we got engaged because she's a strict family. And on her 22nd birthday, just a year later, 3 days after, we got married, and she was 22 and I was 23. And we've been married, like I said, 56 years now. Got 4 children, and we're spouses, got 9 grandchildren, and I now have 2 new great-grandchildren. I just had a new great-granddaughter on April 20th.
Wonderful. Yeah, where
And
did
I
you work?
worked for Michigan Valve. I wandered around just like I did before. I went in service, doing oddball jobs. I worked at Briggs for 2 years, where my dad was, and just grunt work, you know. I didn't need a mentality for it. I was a body wiper. You had a can of gasoline to wipe off all the grease and everything off the body before they shipped them out. That was in Briggs before it became Chrysler's. My wife says, my wife said, you're off too much. Every other week we'd be off for something, with strike or too hot in the shop, we walk out. So she talked to her boss at Michigan Valve. She'd been working there for 6 years. And they said, bring him over and we'll look at him. So I went in and talked to him. They said, okay, you're hired. So I worked for Michigan Valve for 34 years.
Excellent.
And then when the split came in '84, well, before '84 it was coming, and we all knew it. So in '82 they were downsizing and everything, and I was actually forced out. It was either take retirement or be transferred to Washington, D.C. because I handle all the military and the government accounts. The IRS and the Secret Service and all of those were my accounts. I had to deal with them, the federal judges. And it was very strenuous at the end as a salesperson, so I was glad to take the retirement and get out in 1982, so I've been retired 23 years now.
Right. Excellent. Excellent. And are your children still in the area?
Oh yeah, as a matter of fact, my youngest daughter moved to Chicago 12 years ago when my youngest granddaughter was born, because her husband's a pharmacist and he couldn't get himself any higher working at St. John's or Ford Hospital. So he just quit and he got this job working in Chicago. And they've been there 12 years. And 2 months ago, with all those problems they're having with the pharmaceuticals and everything, his department was let go. Him was fired, everybody in the whole department, because they couldn't get the FDA to approve the thing that he was working on. So they couldn't keep him. That was the only thing he was working on. So he back. He started here at McKesson Robbins in Livonia just 2 weeks ago.
Excellent.
And they sold their house last week, and they're moving in their house right over here on Hall Road, Holland Mountain. So I have all my children back. We're all right around here.
Wonderful.
The farthest one away now would be my daughter Kathy, who's the school counselor at Anchor Bay. She lives in New Baltimore.
That's not all that far.
Yeah, she's a counselor, a teacher for years. My second son works for Lunar Tool and Die. He's their control manager, quality control manager. Been there 30-some years. And my daughter in Chicago, the little one, with the 3 girls. She has twin girls. I'm driving to Chicago next Saturday for their graduation.
Okay.
Then they're going to come back. And one of the reasons they're moving back to Michigan is that they both signed up for state. They're starting in Michigan State in September. They're both going to be freshmen there.
Okay.
And so they'll save $40,000 a year in tuition
Yep.
instead of living in Illinois.
Absolutely.
And my youngest son is a science teacher in East Detroit, and his wife is a English teacher for the Lance Cruise.
Excellent.
And my youngest grandson is a hockey player. He's As a matter of fact, I just spent the weekend on my butt watching 5 of his games here. He was in a tournament. He's 13 years old. He was born on Grandma's 65th birthday.
Uh-huh.
So his birthday was also Friday the 18th.
Yeah.
And he's actually drafted by a team with Bell Tire. He's a AAA hockey player.
Excellent. Well, we're getting pretty close to wrapping this up.
Yeah.
Do you
What
have,
else?
I don't know if you do or you don't, do you have a specific, happy memory of your time in the service or a sad memory of your time in the service?
You want to know something? I wouldn't pass it up for the world. It's the experience. It does something to your mental state. I'm not afraid of anything anymore. I mean, that fear, you know you're going to die at any time. Now, how many times did I tell you I'm going to die out there? And I escaped. Something, is telling me this is the way you're going. And I believe that. And that's helped me out as far as that. And actually, it did help me with the drive and everything. I did get a little more ambition after getting out of the service and needing that. But I liked it, especially the good times at the hospital after I got back from overseas, because you didn't have all that weight on you.
Right.
It was all free time. I mean, the Army was just keeping you there till you get enough points to get out, so you weren't doing anything. I was in charge of the psychiatric nut ward
Oh,
at the hospital.
okay.
I was the night supervisor for the nut ward at
Psychiatric.
Percy Jones Hospital. And that was fun, because you had all of these guys wandering around. Most of them were from Headwinds, but there was a few others. We had one alcoholic, and anybody else that had a problem, we had a couple of polio guys that were there too. They were in wheelchairs, but you didn't go in the locked ward alone. You always went with somebody at your back to back,
Right.
so they didn't jump you. And if you got caught alone someplace, you went along with the act. If they went crazy, you went crazy with them.
Yeah.
One of those things. But that was good.
That's what you had to do,
Yep. Worked 2 days. You worked 48 hours on and 48 hours off.
yeah.
So I'd get off my shift at 7 a.m. I ran right down to the depot, hopped on a train and came home for 2 days. And I don't remember sleeping or anything else. And get back in the train and come back, get back in time for your next shift.
Yeah, well, that was, the train, you
Yeah.
get back and forth in an hour,
Mm-hmm.
hour and a half, so.
At the hospital, we had our own apartments too. They had houses all
Yeah.
around the hospital. These big old homes with a lot of bedrooms and everything in it. And I had my own room and everything, apartment until I was discharged.
Okay, is there anything else you really?
I'm a numbers man. You won't interest this, but I keep the family tree now because of all the dates I told you. Remember all that stuff?
Yep.
I keep. This is in here. It was 550 entries.
Wow.
All the birthdays and anniversaries of my family.
Oh, my goodness.
I know at least a third of them by heart.
Hmm.
All of the family. I'm one of 50 first cousins in
Wow,
my family. And
that's a lot of
that's
first
what I do.
cousins. Yeah.
and that's what I do now in my spare time.
Very good.
And now also I'm trying to write this thing out.
Yeah.
Still looking for a publisher. I've talked to several people about getting it published, but I don't have anything yet.
Well, Bill, I'd like to thank you for coming in today,
Right.
telling us your story and letting us
And I am
record it
registered
for
already,
posterity.
you know.
Posterity.
Yes. My son, when we went to the teacher, he has a new motorhome. He drove me to here for that trip
Well,
that I
that's-
told you about.
You're right.
And he took and had me registered. I'm already registered at the World War II monument.
Right.
And it's by the family. And it
Right.
says by your children. So,
Right.
so I have that there.
We were re-registered my dad, so.
Right. Well, you did that also?
Yeah. So, I'd like to thank you for coming in today.
You're welcome.
And I'd especially like to thank you for your service.
A letter from President Truman,
Oh, yes.
and a letter from the President of France.
Ah, very
for
good.
Our service.
What Harry S.D. have to say?
Here's to you who answered the call of your country and served. We thank you.
Oh, okay. Well, we'd like to thank you for coming in and for your service.
It's okay, Jim.
Really appreciate
Yeah,
it.
you're welcome.
We wouldn't be here today if you guys didn't do what you did.